Okay. Give me just a second. I'm still trying to figure some stuff out here. I also hold on. I'm trying to make sure my cam looks better. As I change the brightness, and now it looks weird. So give me just a second here. It's a little bit better. All right. I'm also give me one more second. I'm trying to make sure that the stream sounds okay, and I'm not like, I'm not weird audio where I'm like I'm not synced with my mic. So give me a second. I gotta listen to myself on my phone. After this though, we're gonna get started. There's a lot kind of coming in right now for the Bulls. I did watch Media Day. I'm up to date with everything, so we're gonna talk about everything that we learned from Media Day. We learned some stuff that wasn't so great, as I have pulled up here that Giddey has a ligament tear that he injured in the last game of the Olympics, and he basically hasn't played basketball since then. So that's not something to really you want to know on like or learn about on Media Day. That's like a horrible thing to learn about on Media Day. So give me just a second though. Hold on, sorry, 1 second here. But yeah, we learned a lot of stuff today, and I want to go through all of it. But I also didn't tweet it earlier that I do think that okay, hold on. Sorry, I'm trying to watch myself. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, we're pretty good with the audio. So, let me know if at any point, because I might happen because my OBS is weird. If at any point where it looks like that my microphone and my audio between what you see on video and what you're hearing is off sync, let me know. I think I'm overall fine right now. Sorry, I'm trying to make the light brighter. Okay, there we go. But if at any point it does happen, let me know. I don't think it should though. I think we're fine for at the moment. But if it does happen, let me know. I will fix it. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my camera again. Perfect. Okay, so welcome in everybody. This is going to be my stream for post Media Day, so I know some of you are not gonna be able to watch it until, you know, a little bit later. That's completely fine. But I want to go through some of the stuff that I think is important today. As this is Chicago Bulls Media Day. It's Media Day for a lot of teams of the NBA, and not every team though. And the Bulls allowed us to talk to some people I wasn't expecting, but then also we didn't get to talk to some people that I wanted to. But AK and Billy Diamond got to start, and they were able to kind of answer some questions. But I will say that I think Arturas Karnisovas and Billy Diamond were really kind of going around the questions today, more so than I ever have seen them do. AK a lot of times won't like directly answer the question, but like he'll kind of give you something that's kind of like a, you know, read between the lines. He'll get the answer to this question. Billy is usually kind of straightforward, and I don't think Billy Diamond really answered the questions today, which is kind of new for Billy, and it's a little bit kind of shocking in this sort of situation where I am aware that this is a weird situation for both of them, that it's a completely different team and they have to kind of figure things out, and they have a lot of questions themselves that they don't know the answers to. But I thought that both of them were really kind of just avoiding the questions today, and I don't like that whatsoever. And some of them were kind of yes or no questions, and they just kind of didn't give yes or no. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. We then talked to Nikola Vucevic, who kind of really didn't give much. Kind of just was like, you know, his typical self. He didn't look too thrilled to be there, but I'm not trying to base anything off that. But he answered some questions that were kind of typical Nikola Vucevic style, and I don't really think there's much to kind of talk about when it comes to Vuce. The only thing I will say is that Will Gottlieb thinks that Nikola Vucevic is going to be in a bigger role. Vuce also kind of said that when he answered Will Gottlieb's question. So nothing really to talk about there. Then we talked to Josh Giddey, and this is where I kind of want to start today, because this is something that I'm not exactly too happy about. So we find out today, and Billy kind of mentioned it earlier, which we didn't really know what he was talking about, but Billy kind of mentioned that Giddey's situation kind of hasn't allowed him to play in September, which was like, what are you talking about? This is news to us. But he didn't go into anything. He let Giddey answer for himself. And pretty much what we found out, and this was kind of answered right off the bat, was that Josh Giddey had an ankle injury in the last game against in the Olympics, where I believe he was playing Serbia. And initially he thought it was just an ankle roll, and it wasn't gonna be anything too serious. But then suddenly they did the MRI, and he has an ATFL ligament rupture, and he has not been playing basketball since. That's not great. That's not great news whatsoever. I don't know necessarily what type of training program he's been doing since then, but that's not something I want to hear, because anytime we talk about injuries when it comes to the Bulls, it's always a problem. And for some reason, no matter what year it is, every year coming into training camp, there is some sort of problem with the injuries. And we find out today, out of all days, that like, hey, yeah, so Josh Giddey's been dealing with this injury and hasn't played basketball since the last game he played in the Olympics, which is just like, you've got to be kidding me. So not great news whatsoever, and I'm not happy to find out on media day of all days, but it's really not great news. Now, the good news though is this: it's nothing. It doesn't seem like it's anything like really serious to the point where he's going to be missing opening day. Oh my god, I hate Twitter. I'm so sorry. This is taking forever. I don't know why. I hate this app or website. And I know it's now X, but pretty much as this loads or maybe doesn't load. Josh Giddey did say that if he had to play in a playoff game, for example, he would be playing today. He'd be available to play today. He also then expects to be available for opening night. So it doesn't seem like this injury is going to stop Josh Giddey from missing the beginning of the season. But what my biggest concern is that it's going to stop Josh Giddey from playing in all of training camp, or a good portion of training camp, or potentially missing a good part of the preseason games, which is just not something that the Bulls can really afford right now, because the Bulls have to kind of make a decision about him pretty quickly here, if they're going to actually pay him or not, which I don't expect them to pay Josh Giddey before the season starts, which they have to pay him before the beginning of the season. But also just to, figure out what he is as a player, and how he's going to fit with Kobe, and how he's going to fit with Aya, how he's going to fit with Buzelis. And missing training camp or portions of training camp is just not ideal start to your new NBA team, and you trying to kind of form an identity with this new team. So I'm not exactly happy about this at all. But just to reiterate, he did say that if it was a playoff game, he'd be playing, and he says that he expects to be playing on opening day. So unless something else happens, like he could re-injure himself, which is the other fear that I have coming into training camp after finding out about this news, it seems like Josh Giddey will be available for opening night. So expect Josh Giddey to be in the starting lineup on opening night, unless some sort of setback happens, and we should all be in panic mode after that, because it's the Bulls medical staff, and we know how it goes with the Bulls medical staff. They are never trustworthy, unfortunately. So that's that. That's my overall just initial thoughts of the Josh Giddey stuff, because I think this is the kind of biggest headline of the day. But welcome in, everybody. If you're now just watching, this is my little post media day stream, kind of going over everything that was just talked about in all the interviews today. So any thoughts on the Josh Giddey news? Go ahead and put it in the chat, because overall I'm not too happy about it. What's going on, Taro? A long time no see. Yeah, it has been a little bit, but obviously today's kind of the start of the new year for the NBA. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be making Bulls content again, as it's been. I mean, I know the Olympics happened, but it's been a little bit since we've had some sort of like really good basketball content for the Bulls. So I'm happy to be back and back into doing content, and I will be doing my typical, like we did last year, where I will be streaming as many post games as possible, continuing to make content throughout the year. It's going to be an interesting year, I will say, not just from the Bulls team perspective, but also just that the new Chicago Sports Network is a thing, which is a whole problem right now for me. I'm sure others are kind of figuring out their own problems with it as well. I own YouTube TV, and it's not on YouTube TV, so it's a really annoying thing for me at the moment, but we'll be making do with what we got. And we will be finding workarounds so that I can still bring up the gameplay onto the streams whenever I can. So I'm kind of in the middle of all that process, but welcome in, everybody. Yeah, but I have more thoughts on Media Day, but if you have many initial thoughts on Media Day, just go ahead and put it in the chat. I am looking over. Guys are my second monitor, so let me know if you have any thoughts on Media Day so far. as I do think Media Day is officially wrapped up now, and I'm not missing any other interviews or anything like that. So, big thing overall, though, is like I said, Josh Giddey, he had an ATFL ligament rupture, which is again in his foot ankle area. But he says he's going to be available on opening day. I'm just saying that he says. I'm not saying that we should fully expect it that he's going to be available on opening day. It's just concerning because he hasn't played basketball in a long time. And I just know how this goes with the Bulls. It's always a problem on opening day, and there's just something askew, and then one thing leads to another, and suddenly Josh Giddey's out for the season, which I really hope that doesn't happen, and I don't think will, but we as Bulls fans all have, we're all traumatized from multiple injuries. The longer I watched the press conference, the more frustrated I got. Which one specifically, though, Sko? Because I'm interested in what you say. Because I was also pretty frustrated with some of the press conferences today, and specifically from some people who are not going to be playing on this team, really. But yeah, go ahead. I want to know who you're most frustrated with, because I was also pretty frustrated with some of them. If you have not been able to watch any of the press conferences today, they are available on Twitter. They're also the Chicago Bulls YouTube channel is also streaming it, which was very helpful for me because X sucks. I hate Twitter so much right now. It is a horrific app and nothing loads. But it was on YouTube, so if you want to watch it on YouTube, it's also available there, it's just so much easier on YouTube. And I appreciate that they did it today. So I'll go ahead and say my thing today about what I was upset about. First off, and I've already kind of said at the beginning, one more time, we find out that Josh Giddey got like seriously injured in the last Olympic game he played in. And I'm just like, well, this is great to learn about today. I mean, it's the day before training camp starts, and we're finding out that, oh yeah, Giddey has this serious issue that he's been dealing with, and he hasn't played basketball in like a month. And he should be just getting back to playing basketball now, which is the timeline, which I'm like, fantastic, awesome. I was pretty upset about that. I don't necessarily know why that wasn't made public, and like literally no one else found out about it. Like not even Shams found out about it. So it's a little bit concerning. I'll say that for sure. And I'm upset that we find out about it today. But I'm just hoping that he is available on opening day, because my God, if the guy that we traded Caruso for is not available on opening day, and this suddenly becomes a spiral into, you know, a bigger thing, it's just a horrible look for the Wolves front office. And just, yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily fully in their control, but it's just a horrific start to a contract year for Giddey, and them trying to figure out what's going to be next for Giddey, in a sense. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. So I'm just hoping that he actually is able to play through training camp, play the preseason games. Like, if you have to take a few minutes away from his preseason games, fine. But I want to see him out there, like, next to Kobe, next to Io, next to Zach, next to Buzelis. Like, I want to see him in all these different lineups. And if he's just not able to do that in training camp, then we have to learn about it in the middle of the season, which is just, that's not great. So, that's kind of where I'm just like, gosh, I hate the start of already. And here we are. It's just media day, and I'm already freaking out. So yeah. All right, next topic I want to talk about is the Lonzo Ball stuff, because Lonzo actually talked today, and I was not expecting him to be available today, and maybe that was, you know, put out there before, but I was not expecting him to actually be available today. But first things first is that Karnisovas did say for Lonzo Ball that the expectation is for him to be available on opening night. So that is kind of a big thing. That's a big step, and it's a pretty big expectation from Ball. Now, they have also put the little asterisk saying that, hey, we're not exactly sure how he's gonna, you know, kind of respond in training camp. He's been playing 5-on-5, which is a great thing, but 5-on-5 is different from practice, and then obviously practice is different from the actual game. So I don't really think Lonzo is by any means anywhere near game shape, because he's been out for 2.5 seasons. So I don't really expect him to be anywhere near his level of what we saw before. And I wouldn't be shocked if he has some serious issues when he actually does start playing in the games. And, you know, maybe not necessarily when he's playing, but maybe after the treatment, after the game is going to be like a little bit serious. So, you know, him getting in a preseason game is going to be extremely important. Like, I don't want him to first come back in playing his first NBA level type basketball on opening night. I think that'd be a horrible thing to do. So I really hope he's able to get in some preseason games, and we'll see how that kind of goes from there. The other part when it comes to Lonzo is that, and this is kind of what we were expecting, is that he is right now, and this is just the start of the year, but I kind of won't be shocked if this continues throughout the year. He said back-to-backs are off the table, which makes complete sense, and I'm very happy that back-to-backs are immediately off the table, because that just would not be smart, and it is kind of an obvious decision. And a minutes restriction will be in place. So this is kind of what we've been talking about here on this channel, that we expected Lonzo to be on a minutes restriction, and I won't be shocked, like dead honest, that I won't be shocked if it's like 8 minutes, 10 minutes to start out with. And who knows, maybe it's even smaller, maybe it's a little bit bigger, but I don't expect anything more than 15 minutes just to start out with for the season. Like first, like 3 weeks of the season at bare minimum, yeah, the max amount of minutes he's going to play is maybe 15 in the game. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's a really good just starting point. I personally would have it at 10. So we'll see what the training staff really thinks about it. But I won't be shocked if this is the theme throughout the year for Lonzo. That back-to-backs, he's just like the second game of back-to-back, he's not available. And I think that's perfectly fine. At the end of the day, he needs to just get back to being fully functional. And just being able to actually function as a human being and making sure that he can actually have a stable leg. So to me, his play is not that important, but we finally got kind of like the idea heading into the season. So we'll see how this kind of works out moving forward. But like I said, this is the start of the season for Lonzo. This is gonna be the plan, but I won't be shocked if this is gonna be the plan throughout the rest of the season. Like if this is gonna be it for all 82 games, I'm fine with that as well. So good to know. How you doing, MC Season? I'm doing okay. I'm not exactly happy, I'll say that, after the Bulls, some of the Bulls interviews today and some of the information we found out, but I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be making Bulls content again. So I'm happy. I'm excited for the season to start, as I know the season is going to be horrible for the Bulls, but still, it's always fun for me to always analyze. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm glad to be chatting with you guys again. I'm actually surprised that some of you are even here right now, because I know it's middle of the workday. So I appreciate y'all being here. It really means a lot. Thank you for the likes on the stream as well. I appreciate that. I just saw that. MC Season, were you able to watch the interviews today, or are you just catching up right now? Because I know some people are just catching up right now. Sorry, I gotta drink my water. Just catching up. All right. Yeah. So yeah, I'll help you catch up here. So like I just said, Lonzo, this is the plan. It's pretty much just set here by Casey Johnson. So no back-to-backs. Minutes restriction will be in place. And Lonzo is pretty happy to actually just be back and playing. I work from home, so you should take some break. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So maybe you're able to look at a little bit at it. But yeah. So with Ball, this is kind of what we expected. This is kind of what I've kind of said all off season. And I just, again, the expectation for Lonzo should just be that he's not necessarily here. If he's available to play, awesome. We'll continue to play him. But I just won't be shocked if he has some like serious issues kind of at the start of the year and he'll be out maybe like a week or two. But this is the plan. I'm cool with it. Let's see how it works out moving forward, and maybe the Bulls adjust the plan. It's also kind of just, again, worthy to note that, like Lonzo said, like he has pretty much a brand new knee, which is it's pretty true. He had a cartilage transplant, so it's not necessarily his knee. So it's gonna be interesting to watch. But Lonzo also then said this, and it's not tweeted by Casey Johnson, but he then also said that he expects himself to lose some athleticism. So that you know, the term athleticism is always kind of broad, and we always kind of jump to like, oh, verticality, or you know, the ability to like really move quickly, etc., etc. But I just won't be shocked if his running ability is like really like takes a hit. So we'll see how he's gonna react to it. He obviously has the benefit of being a bigger guard, so that he's not like, you know, only 6 foot and he was able to dunk before, but now he's not. Like, I think he's still gonna be able to dunk, but I just don't think he's gonna have as much explosiveness when he actually does jump and take off. So He did say that in today's interview, which I think is interesting, that he's kind of aware, like, yeah, I don't really expect myself to have as much athleticism, so we'll see how that kind of goes and where it actually does affect him, because my biggest concern for Alonso is that he's just not going to be as effective in the open court, which I think that's like a good thing to kind of expect from Alonso. Like, don't expect him to be the same open court player that we saw before the injury happened, but I'm just like wondering, like, okay, if that's gone, then what else does he bring to the table? And obviously the season's kind of all about figuring that out. So yeah. Who else was in this interview besides Alonso? So I'll bring this back one more time and then we'll get to more interviews. But Josh Giddey was interviewed today, and this was the big news today that was pretty upsetting. And this is the reason why I'm upset a little bit, is that Giddey today in his interview told us, hey, so yeah, I had suffered an ankle injury in the last game of the Olympics that I played in, which was an ATFL ligament rupture, which is an ankle injury. Initially, he said that he thought it was just like an ankle roll. Then the MRI showed that he actually ruptured this ligament, which I don't really know much about all the ligaments, but pretty much though the MRI said that he ruptured it, and so he has not been playing basketball since this has happened. So he pretty much hasn't played basketball for like the last month, which is just like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not happy about this whatsoever. It sucks that we're finding out about this on media day out of all days, and I'm losing my mind that we found out about this on media day. Like, I just can't believe that like no one else like was told about it. Like, not even Shams knew about it. It just was like, yeah, so this happened. I didn't tell you guys, but now you're finding out. And so training camp starts tomorrow, and now you're just finding out. So he said though this is the more important thing. He said that if it was a playoff game today, he'd be playing. He expects to be playing on opening night, but he also then kind of mentioned that he's going to be a little bit more conservative. So I'm just like, okay, that's probably the smarter thing. It sucks because that means that he's probably going to be missing part of training camp. I hope not. And then he might miss, some preseason games. And I just think that's just like a horrible thing to start out with your Bulls career. And the Bulls have to kind of make a decision about him after trading for him, right? So it's just like a horrific start to your Bulls career. I'm hoping though that he's going to be able to play through training camp, because he says that like now would be the time that he's able to get back to playing. So he should be practicing tomorrow, basically, but we'll see how he responds. It's just that we as Bulls fans are all traumatized because we've seen how injuries go, especially with guards in a Bulls uniform, specifically the point guards. Just look at Lonzo, and obviously Derrick Rose just retired. So we're all traumatized, and I'm just worried that it's gonna, it's just gonna spiral to where he's out for 2 weeks, or he's gonna miss a month or something. I hope that's not the case. I don't think that's gonna be the case, but this is kind of what is gonna happen, unfortunately. So we all kind of are just traumatized by previous injuries, so we're gonna hope that it does not happen to Giddey, because we need him to be available on opening day. So he says that he's gonna be available on opening day. That's his timeline right now. And I expect him to be playing on opening day unless some sort of setback happens, which obviously could happen. We'll see how he responds in training camp, which, again, we're just hoping that nothing else happens. Because, my God, this is just something that I'm just like, why are we finding out about this on media day? Like, we should not be finding out about this specific injury on media day. But it is what it is. It's typical Bulls at the end of the day. Nikola Vucevic was the first player to get interviewed today. He didn't really say much, and like even Casey Johnson just didn't really tweet about it too much today. But I watched the entire interview, and Vuce really was just typical Vucevic today. And he kind of was just saying like, yeah, he said I feel old now, which is what it is. He then also kind of talked about how because Will Gottlieb from CHGO has been kind of talking about he expects Vuce to kind of be used differently this year. And I don't personally know how that's going to work out. I can see it because Billy Donovan does do that with Vuce, where he does like to play through him. But Vuce kind of also reiterated that he's planning on being used a little bit differently this year, where like he's going to have the ball a little bit more, be a little bit more of a playmaker, which to me that screams, God, no, please no, I don't want that. Especially if he's in the post. If he's going to be more of a pick and roll passer, that's fine, but if he's going to be posting up and trying to draw double teams and kick out and etc., it's just not going to work out well. It's so interesting just to hear that, because Billy Donovan and Arturas Karnisovas today had talked about how they're planning on playing extremely fast. Like, it's all about pace today. And they're trying to find their new identity, but they're going to be focusing on playing faster. They're going to be focusing on shooting layups and shooting threes, which is a big kind of difference from what they've been doing, obviously, the past couple of seasons. So we'll see. We'll see how he does that. Giddey also mentioned in terms of pace of play that Levine and others have been practicing with Josh Giddey, and they've been using 14 seconds shot clocks to kind of up the tempo and get into their sets quickly, and just find ways to get quick baskets, right? I think that's overall pretty smart. So if there is something that I got from the Josh Giddey interview that I was like, hey, this is good, it was kind of that, which was that he talked about that him as a point guard, he understands that he needs to push the tempo, and he thinks that because the Bulls were bottom 3 in pace last season, that he's going to come in and really work on pushing the tempo with the rest of the guys, and he sees that that the rest of the team has guys that can also play up tempo. So here's his quote saying that, I spoke with Matas and Zach about it. We want to play up tempo. We started scrimmaging with 14-second shot clocks to emphasize the pace we want to play. Once it becomes a habit, the team's going to be pretty scary in the open court, and I just hope to see that. Like, this team could give up 150 points, but if they're like top 5 in fast break or top 5 in pace, I'm all for it. Like, that's great. I want to see that, please. Like, that's the biggest thing I want to see. So this is a really good quote from Giddey, and I'm happy that he said this, because he is going to be the guy that's going to kind of be driving the engine this year. And so obviously with Lonzo not being fully healthy, like, we don't know if he's gonna be able to push the pace, but I mean, between obviously Giddey, Kobe, Io, Levine, Buzelis, and others, and Williams, like, we should be one of the fastest teams in the NBA. We'll see if that's actually going to be the case, because it's a Billy Donovan ran offense, but that's the hope for coming into this year. So there's that. Other thing that was talked about today was from Arturas Karnisovas, and this was kind of reiterated from what we heard from on when he talked on 670 The Score on the radio, was that his focus this year is not keeping the pick. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. But I also am aware that the front office is never going to come out and say, yeah, we plan on being a bottom 10 team this year. Like, they're never going to say that. But the thing is that the way that they've kind of responded to this question is just kind of weird. And I'm not exactly thrilled with what they're saying. Like, they're talking about how what Arturas said is that, like, he doesn't want to sacrifice the integrity of the game to just help development with the younger players. He looks at these young guys and they're like, young. Obviously, Buzelis is really young, but I mean, think about it. P. Will is going into his 5th year. Kobe's in his 6th year. Io's in his 4th year. Like, these guys are not necessarily like rookie or sophomore year players anymore. So he kind of looks at this team as like, oh, we have some like youngerish players, but they're kind of like vets now. And I just don't like that overall thinking. I mean, Giddey's also heading into his 4th year. Like, it's just not a good way to kind of think about things and how you're going to actually get to helping your team in the future. So we'll see. I'm not exactly thrilled with what Karnisovas kind of talked about in respects to how he used the team, but we'll see. I still think this team is going to be pretty overall bad, but I'll just be pretty upset if they're like, at the end of the year, they're going to be like, if they're trying to push for the play-in when they really shouldn't be. That's kind of my only thing that I'm just kind of really looking at. Do you think Giddey will be able to push the pace on a Lonzo type level? So no, I don't. I think Giddey will push the pace in a different way from Lonzo, in the respect to where Lonzo pushed the pace in a sense that he just threw the ball up the court, right? When Lonzo got the ball and he saw an opportunity just to give the ball up, like throw a half-court pass, he would do it. With Giddey, he's not necessarily that sort of player. I think Giddey's more of like, I'm going to push the pace with the ball myself, and I'll find you guys as we get closer to, to the paint, or I'll find you guys running down the lane. It's not necessarily Lonzo-esque, but it's going to be still pushing the pace. So I overall think it's a good stepping stone for the Bulls as a team. Is just that you have Josh Giddey just to push the pace, but he's going to do it more so with the basketball instead of just, giving up to whoever. He is still obviously a willing passer. So if someone is like obviously wide open down on the other side of the court, he's going to give it up. But I think Lonzo kind of pushed the pace more with his passing compared to with Giddey. I think it's going to be more of his decision making, where he's going to have the ball sometimes he's going to give it up. And I think him in the open court where he gets really downhill is where he is most effective. I guess I should more iterate, like, just downhill play from Josh Giddey, whether it's the open court or in the half court, is where he is most effective, where he can use his speed to kind of combo with his size to get better shots for himself and open up others. So that's kind of where I see Josh Giddey pushing the pace. It's not going to be like Lonzo. Like, Lonzo seriously was just like, I see you down there and you may not necessarily be open, but I'm still going to give you the ball just to get the ball down there. Giddey is going to be a little bit more so like, I'm going to get the rebound, I'm going to take it myself up, and then I'll make the decision after pushing the tempo. So it's going to be very different from obviously DeRozan type basketball, where we saw him just get the rebound, just slow down and just dribble out the air out the basketball, right? It's going to be much different from that, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be Lonzo-like, because Lonzo is a whole different skill set, in my opinion. I think Lonzo's just a different sort of player, because Lonzo isn't necessarily the greatest when it comes to with the basketball, right? Like his best trait is finding guys and filling lanes himself, and so he needs help to score, right? Unless he's obviously shooting the three ball. But with Giddey, I think he can kind of be his own self engine to find ways to score himself, but also push the ball with his own tempo. Yeah, gotcha. I think that's just kind of the way I look at it. Now, who knows? I could be completely wrong, but I think Giddey, you're gonna see more rebounding from him compared to Lonzo, where instead of like with Lonzo, like you'd see Lonzo kind of in the middle of the court a lot. Giddey's gonna be more towards in the paint when it comes to the rebounding, and then he's gonna push it himself. So like more like Giddey's not Russell Westbrook obviously in terms of athleticism, but think more Russell Westbrook in terms of how he would push the pace, right? Russ would get the rebound and just take off. Like, I think Giddey's kind of similar in that sense. And you're gonna see him make more decisions kind of as they get up the court instead of just like, oh, go, I'll give you the ball now. Because Giddey is more of a little bit more of a scoring threat compared to what Lonzo is at the end of the day. I think that's good. I think you're the guy that is going to be running the engine of the team, aka Josh Giddey. He needs to be able to score. Like you can't have that sort of guy. You're a main initiator, not be able to score. So he's going to have to find ways to score more effectively, obviously, because his scoring numbers aren't exactly the best. But it's better than what Lonzo would be in a sense, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a lot of the interviews. Now I'm going to move on to LaVine and Kobe. So the other two players that were interviewed today are Zach LaVine and Kobe White. I was hoping that the Bulls would talk to Patrick Williams and Ayo Dosunmu. We did not get those interviews today. They may actually have some sort of interview either on the Chicago Bulls app or on the radio, because I know Chuck Swirsky, I think, talked to Ayo Dosunmu, but I don't have that currently. So we'll see if that comes out later. I personally do not have that information at the moment. But when it comes to Zach, Zach was before Kobe. So Zach came down. He sat down after Josh Giddey, and it was interesting just to listen to him because we haven't really heard from Zach in a while. Like, the last time we heard from Zach was back, I think, in March. I think he said February, but I think it was back in March when he kind of like sort of returned back to the team for like a team picture, and he was talking about how he's kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to his rehabbing. And so Zach then sat down today, and before taking any questions, he said like a 3-minute opening statement saying how he's in a pretty good spot in terms of his headspace. He thinks that he is overall like in a good spot when it comes to being on the team. He said more importantly though that he is fully healthy. He feels really good. And then he then said that like he takes pride in wearing a Chicago Bulls uniform. Like there's every time he puts on a Bulls uniform, and this is probably just all PR, but he said like, yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm really happy to always be here, and I'm looking forward to just getting to work because he thinks that this team has a lot to prove. But then more importantly though, he made this very clear, and I think he spent most of the opening statement kind of saying this, which was that he said, when it comes to any sort of rumors out there, he's heard all the rumors and all the the talk about him, he made it clear that when it comes to any sort of info, when it comes to Zach LaVine and rumors, if you did not hear it from me or my representation, aka Rich Paul, it's not from us. Like, he want to make it like very, very clear that if any sort of rumor got out there that didn't have like a reliable source of like this came from Zach himself or came from Clutch Sports, right? It's not true. Like, he put that out there like quickly. And it was interesting just to kind of listen to. I was like, wow, okay, like this is weird. And then after that, he kind of said that he's ready to help the team with whatever is necessary. So it's kind of what we've been hearing overall, is that Zach's going to be willing to kind of take whatever role is needed for the team, which he did put it up here. Casey Johnson said. So, Zach, overall, though, I will say with that statement, like, it kind of sounds like he's taking the high road, because he then mentioned too that anything when it comes, like, he said himself that when it came to any sort of negative things from the organization or some like previous talks that were had between the front office or maybe the coaching staff, like, he's just kind of like put that behind him and is just kind of looking just to move forward. And he talked about how, and this is when the questions were being asked, that when he was out with the injury, like, there was a lot of noise going on, but because he couldn't play basketball, it was kind of hard on him, right? Because he then talked about how he understands that this season is going to be a lot about rumors, trade deadline, decisions for this organization moving forward. Where is he going to be where is he going to play in February? Like, who knows? But he said that for him, it's most important that he gets to play basketball, because all that will take care of itself. He doesn't have to worry about that if he can just be able to play. So to me, the biggest thing, and I'm kind of reading between the lines when I say this, but for Zach, it seems like the biggest thing for him is to just be healthy this season. And I respect that, honestly. I think that's something that he is also aware that people think that he's not a healthy player, when in fact he's one of the more healthier players. I know last year happened. I know last year's last year, but overall, it seems like Zach is like, look, I'm just trying to be here and play basketball. And it is what it is. So he needs to just, for him, he's just saying, like, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to help this team no matter what, etc. So it was kind of like it could have been like a major PR move, but it was also kind of shocking, I will say. Like, it was like something that I was not expecting from Zach to just kind of come out and say, because as much as Zach is available to the media, he doesn't necessarily talk unless he has to talk. So it was kind of interesting to kind of look at. So he basically acknowledged the chatter about the team being better without him. Maybe not. He didn't directly acknowledge that, but he did say, though, that he watched a ton of film. He had a lot of talks with a lot of people, and he's coming in with kind of like a really open mindset, and he knows what he needs to work on. So take that as take that to your interpretation, MC Season. Like, that could be him saying that, yeah, the team played better without me. I'm aware of it. I'm going to try to fit it back in with that. Maybe that's what he did say. I think overall, for me, though, I didn't necessarily think it was directly correlated to that, but more so that he's aware of what he himself needs to do as a player to help him and then also help the team around him. And it's not necessarily like, oh, the team played better without him. It's more so just like, I'm aware of the situation that we're in, and I'm going to make sure that I help make this team better with my play. So it seems like he's kind of just open to whatever, is kind of asked of him. My biggest thing for him this year, and it's going to be interesting to watch, because so when it comes to Zach, I've always said that he has the ability to be a good on-ball defender, and he knows it too. He's actually been like a pretty okay on-ball defender throughout the years, but it's his off-ball defense that has always just been horrible, and I don't know if that's actually something that can be fixed. Like, I don't really think that's something that he can like necessarily take and like implement into his game moving forward, because when it comes to Zach, like, he's not the biggest player. Like, I think a lot of people, when they see athleticism, they're thinking, oh, he's like a great shot blocker, or he can like, get in the passing lanes all the time. And it's just not always the case. Like, yes, a player can have great athleticism, but that doesn't mean they're always going to be a great defender. Zach, at the end of the day, is a little more on the smaller side. Like, he is only 6'5". He is pretty thin overall. He is only 205 pounds coming into this year, which I think he actually lost some weight too, which I'm not entirely sure. But like, he doesn't have the tools to be a good off-ball defender. Like, I mean, if you want tools to be a good off-ball defender, go look at Patrick Williams. And I would argue that Patrick Williams still has ways to go to being a good off-ball defender. But he doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the length of Patrick Williams. He doesn't have the hands of Patrick Williams. He doesn't have the wingspan of Patrick Williams, right? So it's just something that I think with Zach that I don't expect him to be like a good off-ball defender throughout his entire career, honestly. It's just who he is as a player. However, I do think that this year it's going to be interesting to watch, but because Alex Caruso's gone and I expect Patrick Williams to be playing the 4, I think Zach is going to actually be the team's like main on-ball defender this year if he's willing to take that role. And I think if he's going to try to prove the doubters, you know, saying like, oh, he doesn't play any defense and he's not necessarily a two-way player, besides like all he does is score, that's not necessarily true either. Like, he does other things besides score, but I think he's gonna take that challenge this year of being like, I'm gonna be a good on-ball defender this year. Because when you look around to the rest of the team, I mean, I know Io is obviously still here, but no Alex Caruso. I don't expect Patrick Williams to be guarding the best, like the point guard. Like, if it's a star point guard, for example, I don't expect Alex Caruso to be guarding that guy. Or sorry, Patrick Williams to be guarding that guy. Because Patrick Williams is going to be playing the 4. Josh Giddey as the point guard is not going to be running around and guarding guys like Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, etc. And Kobe, at the end of the day, as much as we want to say that Zach LaVine is not a good defender, Kobe tried a lot defensively last season, and his numbers were worse than Zach. So I just look at that. I'm like, okay, well, if Zach's gonna try to like flip this narrative of like, oh, I'm not much of a player besides scoring, then I think he's gonna have to take that challenge. So I'm gonna be interested to see if Billy Donovan kind of makes him take that challenge this year. Because at the end of the day, I don't really see much else defense on this roster. Obviously, Vooch is not a defender whatsoever. Jalen Smith coming in is not any sort of rim protector either. And so you have Patrick Williams, who has kind of some of his flaws still defensively. Ayo Dosunmu, who didn't have necessarily the best numbers in terms of defense last year. It was kind of interesting to kind of look at Ayo because his numbers compared to the rest of like the point of attack defenders last year were not as great as they were from previous years. I still think Ayo's overall a really good defender, so I don't take like full stock into those numbers, but I mean, I just think that it's just Ayo and Zach kind of on the perimeter if it's going to be those two. And then on the interior, it's going to be more Torrey Craig and Patrick Williams. But after that, like, there's not much else defense besides Buzelis, and it sounds like the Bulls really don't want to play Buzelis that much to start the year. So, yeah, this team is going to absolutely suck defensively. So if you're worried about the record, this is the reason why I say this team is not going to be good in terms of record-wise. I think this team's going to still suck overall, and they're not going to get to 40 wins like some people are predicting, because their defense is going to be absolutely atrocious. But for Zach himself, I think this is going to be the challenge this year, is how can he actually take this upon himself and say, I'm going to be guarding. It doesn't have to be at a high level either. I'm just saying that he has to just be like a solid on-ball defender, which the numbers overall, though, from his years have been like okay defensively in terms of on-ball defense. Off-ball defense has been a complete like disaster. Like, I'm willing to say that Zach off-ball is never going to work out. But at the end of the day, he's a perimeter player. He's not like a 4. He's not a forward. He's a guard. So if he can just become a solid on-ball defender, then I think a lot of the narratives kind of go away, honestly. And I'm interested to see if he kind of takes that upon himself this year. So that's kind of what I took from what Zach said. We'll see if he actually does that, though. Again, at the end of the day, all these questions will be answered when the games actually start. When it comes to Kobe, the biggest thing I took from Kobe and his interviews today was that he talked about conditioning. He talked about how he thinks that last year the biggest issues with him that he kind of found himself was that like he'd be out of breath coming towards the end of games and just felt like he wasn't able to like necessarily finish. And it wasn't like, you know, where he talked about it's not necessarily like him like, oh my god, I can't breathe. It's more so that he just didn't feel like he had the extra gear in him. So with Kobe, he talked about this offseason was all about his conditioning and how he's going to really try to emphasize being able to play a lot more. But more importantly, he talked about how his consistency throughout games was, or from game to game, was kind of all over the place, right? Because, and we talked about this on this channel, when it came to Kobe, like, yeah, he'd have like a spectacular game one game, and then, you know, next game he's kind of nowhere to be found, or he'll have like a good 2 weeks, and then the next week he's ice cold. And he talked about how when he talked to DeMar and some of the other veterans, that if he's gonna be like the type of player that he wants to be in this league, which is, you know, a top tier level player, his great play has to be every night. Like, it's not, oh, I can be scoring 38 this one game and then scoring only, you know, 4 points the next game, or, you know, hitting 5 threes this game and then can't hit a 3 the next game, right? It's got to be every single night. He's got to bring it every night, and it's not on just the offensive end, but it's got to also be on the defensive end. And like I said, Kobe's numbers defensively last season, and like, look, I'm willing to admit he was trying to be better defensively last year. We all kind of saw the effort he was putting in. He just, unfortunately, because of he's shorter, he's not as athletic as some others, and he doesn't have as big of a wingspan. Unfortunately for him, he is not a good defender. It's just how it is at the end of the day. Kobe White as a defender is just never going to be good. As much as he can put in as much effort, etc., he just does not have the tools to really be that good of a defender. I don't really know what else he could be. I think maybe he can like turn into maybe like a good chaser defender, but we'll see about that. But that's kind of it for Kobe. So I expect him to continue to put in more effort on the defensive end, and we'll see how that kind of goes for him, because again, I don't really expect much from him defensively, but we'll see how the conditioning kind of helps him throughout the season, because we saw months where Kobe was like absolutely on fire, and then, you know, at the end of the year he just was like, where is he, right? So yeah, I'm interested to see how Kobe kind of uses his conditioning and see what sort of things he's added to his game this year. But that's kind of the biggest thing I think I took from his overall, all of his interviews today was just that, pretty much. So I'm looking forward to seeing Kobe play this year, see him play next to Josh Giddey. Kobe talked about specifically that he takes pride in being able to play on ball and off ball. So he expects that he won't have any issues playing next to Giddey, and he and him have talked a little bit about playing with each other. So it'll be interesting to kind of watch how that works out with Giddey and him. So who knows? I mean, that could be technically our backcourt of the future. Like, it's kind of crazy to say, but if Kobe takes this next leap, which I'm hoping he seriously does, and, you know, Giddey, I think, is going to be here to stay, that could be your backcourt of the future. It's going to be weird defensively, but then you kind of have to work around that, right? So just important to kind of keep in mind. What do you want to see more from Kobe next year? It's honestly just, I've always said it with Kobe, but it comes down to consistency. But I'll give more specifics. So I'll bring up Kobe's stats for you, because this is kind of where I'm a little bit concerned with Kobe still, where I still say that he's basically like a poor man's Zach LaVine. Like, it's very similar numbers when you kind of look at it, and it's just so interesting, because everyone's like, oh well, like, the Bulls play better without Zach last year. Like, he's not a winning player. His sort of style isn't necessarily winning, and yet basically what happened is that you replaced Zach LaVine with basically a less version of Zach LaVine last year with Kobe. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering in terms of similarity, right? Zach is pretty much like a 20 plus point per game and 5-5 guy, and what did Kobe do last year? 19, 5-5. Like, it's very similar. And Kobe's percentages, his overall attempts from three were kind of near what Zach does. Zach usually takes 7 threes a game, right? With Kobe, though, it's just that his overall, like, his problems on defense it doesn't get overcome by him only scoring 19 points on offense. Like, it's not enough, right? When it comes to someone like Zach and why Zach got paid, right? If you're wondering why Zach is paid, is because, yeah, he's not great defensively, but I mean, he had a year he put a 27, and then obviously 25, right? And like I said, it's basically similar numbers in terms of assist and rebound. It's it's almost identical. It's pretty much identical. And pretty much when you look at this, it's like Zach overall in his numbers last year were pretty much on par with what Kobe did when Kobe obviously played almost every single game and Zach was obviously out. But everyone said, though, that Zach was playing bad last year, and I agree. Zach was playing bad, and the reason why is because he wasn't averaging 25 points per game, and he was not giving good defense, right? So with Kobe, the way I look at it is this. You had some incredible months. Let's go ahead and just pull up some of the splits that he had last season, okay? Like, some of these months were absolutely insane from Kobe, and I'm really happy for him for what he did. But when it comes to overall consistency, you cannot just have these like streaks, right? So for Kobe, to me, the biggest jump that he needs to do is that he has to bare minimum get into the at least a 22 point per game mark this year on average. I'm talking average, okay? He averaged 19 points per game last season in a career high in minutes, right? What was it? It was 36 minutes per game or whatever last year. So you're probably 36 minutes per game last year. You're probably going to get similar minutes this year. So can you take those same minutes that you had a career high in last year, or you averaged 19, right? Can you take those same minutes and up it to now it's 22, right? That to me will then make sure that, his defensive liabilities, I'm not worried about it now, because he is giving you consistent 22 points per game every single night, right? And on top of the fact that he is an efficient 3-point shooter, he's a good ball handler, that I'm not worried about his defensive deficiencies, right? So he needs to take that step, in my opinion. And that all comes down to efficiency. Now, for example, let's take October, right? October, I don't know what sort of player Kobe was, but he couldn't find the basket whatsoever. November also wasn't exactly the best to start with, but then he kind of found a little bit near the end of November, right? Then this summer, he kind of exploded, right? We're suddenly looking at 40% from three, 47% from the field, similar things in January, right? This is what I'm talking about, though, in terms of consistency, is that can you replicate these December and January months and make it your consistent, point per game output, right? This is what has to be for Kobe, because this right here is a pretty valuable player. 19 points per game, and, not exactly the best in terms of overall shooting efficiency. Pretty good from three, though. But he's not the best playmaker, though, and obviously bad defensively. It's just not exactly bringing the best value, right? But if you can replicate these December and January months of these numbers here and make it your consistent stats throughout the season, that's what I'm looking for. And like Kobe said, it has to be night in, night out. It can't be, 1 week of averaging 30 and then the next week I'm averaging 5, right? It can't do that, right? You have to come in and be ready to be that sort of player every single game. No matter who's defending you, no matter who the opponent is, what sort of defense you're facing, because Kobe's going to be, he's going to be guarded by some of the team's best defenders now, especially now that DeRozan isn't here. So can he take that and seriously run with this and, get to like 22 points per game consistently? That's going to be the challenge for Kobe this year. Obviously, without DeRozan, you're going to probably get some more shots, so there's obviously that. But your minutes are probably going to be the same. That's my biggest concern, is that because he averaged 36 minutes per game last season, which is kind of unheard of in today's NBA world now, and he only averaged 19 at the end of the day. That's not great. Like, he needs to find a way to find more points in the same amount of minutes this upcoming season. So playing faster is going to help him, but just overall being more consistent, finishing more consistently at the rim, not going through streaks from the 3-point line, but also then finding ways to get to the free throw line, that's all going to help him. So it's just an overall package for him, honestly. I'm really interested to see how it kind of works out for him this upcoming season. Excuse me. So yeah, I'm excited. And Kobe kind of also mentioned that this is going to be a challenge for him this upcoming year. He's ready for the challenge. Like, I have full faith that he's ready for this challenge, and I'm really looking forward to it this year. All right, I'm trying to think of what's up on next here, because I'm going to check Casey Johnson one more time. I don't really think there's anything else that I'm missing here, but I'm so sorry. I see that the frames are my bitrate just dropped, so if you are getting worst quality stream. I do apologize. My internet is deciding, hey, I'm gonna suck right now. I do apologize about it. We're coming back up though, so hopefully I stop dropping frames soon and the internet will stabilize. But if not, then you know it is what it is. At least I'm still streaming though. Yeah. All right. I think that's gonna overall, unless someone else, you know, MC Season or anyone else wants to bring up anything else in chat about the media day stuff. That's gonna kind of end my media day talk. But I do want to talk about Derrick Rose if my internet would kind of figure itself out. Sorry, I'm trying to see if my internet will fix itself here. It's not right now. It's not. I'm at 830 bitrate at the moment, which is god awful. Oh, we're coming back up now. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I stop the music. That will do something, or maybe hold on. I'll just close this out too. Okay. Honestly, that was kind of weird. So stopping the music actually did help. I don't know what happened, but all right, whatever. Cool. Okay. Before I do end stream though, I do want to talk about this because I know a lot of people are talking about this, and you know, I did make my tweet about Derrick and everything, but this was also brought up in today's media day interviews. A lot of people were asked about Derrick Rose and what he kind of meant to Chicago, and you know, obviously some of the players in the Bulls have played against Rose, namely Levine and Vucevic mostly. But yeah, I mean, so if I'm sure you're all aware, but Derrick Rose did officially announce his retirement this in the past week. And it's kind of a crazy thing to kind of think about, that Derrick Rose is officially retired from the NBA. It's just kind of just not, it just doesn't make sense in my head, but he is done. It's crazy to kind of to talk about, but I just want to say that I personally, so a lot of you Bulls fans got to really watch Derrick in like his, you know, best years. I personally did not do that. I was in the middle of baseball and all that stuff, so I kind of watched a Bulls game here and there when Rose was like in MVP form, but I wasn't able to watch a lot. Unfortunately, though, I do remember when I watched Rose when he did get injured. Like I was watching that game live, and it really sucked when he tore his ACL. I was watching with my grandma, and it absolutely just sucked to see. But overall, though, when it comes to Rose, I started watching basketball in the year he was out, like fully out. Like, so this year when he was completely out, the 2012-13 season, that was when I really started to watch basketball. And then the 2013-14 season, his year when he returned, was the year I watched the full NBA season for the first time, and I've watched the full NBA season since. So I guess you could say that last year was like decade long for watching basketball every single year. But obviously, then Rose that year only played in 10 games. He didn't play a lot, and then the next year, he also dealt with some injuries as well. And it just seemed like he obviously wasn't the same player, which is kind of, I guess, a little bit was shocking, but also I guess a little bit to be expected. But I did get to watch these years with Derrick on the Bulls, and I do appreciate those years, as he, no matter what, even though he was at an MVP type level before, it seemed like he always seemed like a really good dude and a great teammate overall. And yeah, and it was cool to see him play those years, even though he wasn't at his peak form. But I'm still aware though that like for a lot of you guys, like Rose was like the biggest thing in the world, because he's the kid from Chicago that we could all get behind and support, because he is from Chicago and he's one of us, right? And it's unfortunate that his career has been derailed due to injuries, but there are some absolute gems, obviously, in his early years, and you know, his first playoff game as in his career is something that always pops out, right? And obviously his MVP year was absolutely insane. And I've gone back and I've seen some of those highlights and I've seen some of those games, and yeah, this dude was an absolute killer when he was top of the line. When it comes to Rose, though, and what I overall think in terms of his, just him as a player, like I think of just a guard that, like a 6'3", 6'2", really guard that had just like such a unique skill set that we've never seen before, right? And at the end of the day, what we're going to take from Rose and his time in the NBA is that he brought something to the game that we really have never seen, right? Having a guard that is that explosive, that can be the finisher of an alley-oop, is just unheard of, right, at that time. And I think kind of him and Russell Westbrook were the two guys that you look at, like smaller guards, and Russell's a little bit bigger than Rose, but these are smaller guards that just play with absolutely no fear. And it's something that now you see kind of passed down through the generations, that like, oh yeah, look at John Morant, look at I guess John Wall was kind of during Rose's time too, but like he also kind of reminds me, but Wall's a little bit bigger too. But you can see a lot of guards now that even if they're small, like they still go in without fear. I think Allen Iverson was kind of maybe the first guard to kind of go into the paint without fear as like a really small guy, but he didn't have the explosion like a Rose or like a Westbrook. But Rose was a guy that just, you could just absolutely see he would just go in and find ways to finish through traffic amongst the trees here, just like how. And that's, to me, what he's going to leave on this game as he officially steps away from playing. I hope that he does stick around in the game in some sort of fashion. I don't necessarily know what that means, but I hope he finds a way to kind of stick around. And maybe it's through mentorship, and I know he has some children, so I hope he just finds a way to kind of stick around. He's obviously very soft-spoken, he doesn't really talk to the media a lot, but I hope he finds a way to kind of just stick around in the NBA in some sort of fashion, as no matter what, he'll always be remembered as one of the best guards ever to finish through traffic, and that's obviously saying a lot. Hold on, sorry, give me. I'm so blind. I'm gonna read a chat message. I remember watching him on the CW back in 07 rookie year. That was something special. CW TV channel. Yeah, I'm aware of CW. That's actually still around, actually, which is kind of crazy. I was just watching something on it the other day. And obviously now that we're moving to over the air again for Bulls games, which is the craziest thing in the world, and I'm annoyed about it. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the CW. But I'm aware that it is still around. I know NASCAR races are still on it, so yeah. But here's what I'm going to say when it comes to Rose, because a lot of people are still talking about Rose and like, is he a Hall of Famer, et cetera, et cetera. First and foremost, I do think his number should be absolutely retired. Derrick Rose's number one should be retired. It's basically unofficially retired right now, and I think that because he won an MVP and what he meant to the city, he absolutely should get his number retired. Like that makes perfect sense, and that shouldn't even be up for discussion. But I don't trust the Reinsdorfs, and the Reinsdorfs are stupid, so we'll see what happens about that whole thing. But his number should, no matter what, be retired, in my opinion. And no one else is going to take it, no matter what. I've always said that we technically, if Rose never got injured, like we didn't see his like full peak. Now, I don't think necessarily like in like year, like when he was like 28, 29 would be his peak, but I do think that like age 24 through 26, 27 would have been his peak. And I've always said that if he was able to adapt to the game, which I think he would have, when, you know, Steph Curry started taking all these threes and the game started to get up tempo, if he just never had those injuries and adapted, I think that Derrick Rose could have averaged a triple-double. And I seriously mean it. You know, he is a score-first guard, yes, but I look at him and Russell Westbrook, and I just think they're just so similar. And Russ, obviously, you know, Russ is a little bit, like, he has a little bit difference in terms of his game, and, like, he doesn't have, like, the dribbling skills that Derrick did, but they just have, like, a similar type game. And I think that with Derrick, like, he could have been averaging or close to averaging a triple-double if he got to his, like, prime years as a guard and the tempo increased, etc. Unfortunately, though, I do think that, like, he still would have kind of went off like a little bit. Like his decline would have happened a little bit quicker than we would have liked, because he, at the end of the day, is a smaller guard that does rely on athleticism. Now, Westbrook, like, I don't think people understood this about Westbrook. Like, Westbrook did kind of change his game a little bit, where like he was having still fantastic seasons at age 32. Like, I mean, this is insane to me that he was able to do such a thing, because at the end of the day, Westbrook is also a smaller guard that relied on athleticism, and yet we see him having like these spectacular years into his age 30 years. I don't know if necessarily Derek would have done that, but I do think like his age 27, 26, 25 years would have been much different than what we actually saw here if the injuries didn't happen. And I think that he would have been close to averaging triple-double. I really do. And I would have loved to have seen it, because it would have been something spectacular to watch. Now, when it comes to actually, his Hall of Fame status, and I already know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but it's really hard for me to give him that Hall of Fame status. Like, I know that he'd be the first MVP ever to never be in the Hall of Fame, but it's hard, man. Like, with the way that guys are now, like, the competition is so tough that I look at some of the guys that I'm like, man, these guys should be in the Hall of Fame. But, like, I just take, for example, someone like Chris Webber, for example. Like, he's now in the Hall of Fame, but it took forever for him to get into the Hall of Fame. And so, because of that, I just don't know. Like, I have some serious doubts he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. As a person, I think Derek absolutely deserves it. In terms of his overall accolades, though, it's rough. Having the MVP year obviously does help, but you're looking then at a guy that, when I compare them to other guards in the NBA that had spectacular careers, like, it's going to be a bit difficult. It really will be. I for sure think that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he's ever going to get to the Hall of Fame, it's going to take a bit, but I don't really know if he ever will. And I want to make this clear. I don't think that should be, and that shouldn't be disrespect to him. Like, no matter what, he is forever a legend in basketball history, like, especially Bulls history. He is forever a legend, to do what he did and pretty much change the game when you really think about it. But his Hall of Fame argument is just, it's really tough. It is extremely tough to really give him that. So I don't know. I'm interested in what you guys think. I know not a lot of you are currently watching, but let me know, like, what is the argument for him to get into the Hall of Fame? Because, like, I've heard, like, that, like, yeah, MVP, every MVP is in the Hall of Fame. Like, I get it, but that's also kind of assuming that you also had many other good years, and Derek had 3 All-Star years, 3 All-NBA years, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough, right? It's really tough to, 1 All-NBA year. Excuse me. 3 All-Star years, 1 All-NBA year, all rookie year. Yeah, rookie of the year. So, I don't know. Me personally, I compare his accolades with his peers who came up with him in the NBA and see if he deserves it. That's the thing, though. I've kind of already done that. I just, like, I don't really have a good argument for him. It's really rough, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, like, it's really tough to kind of, like, do that and, like, say, like, yeah, he deserves it. Like, so, for example, let's do this. Like, one guy that kind of came to my mind immediately when people were kind of talking about this, which I don't even know why this was even a discussion, but so let's take this guy, right? Tony Parker is one of my favorite players of all time. I love him. Now, he obviously was just inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2023, so congrats to him. But let's talk about him, right? Now, he didn't win an MVP. I'm aware he has 4 rings, but let's forget about that for a second here. Let's just look at rest of his accolades, right? 6-time All-Star, All-NBA. He had a Finals MVP performance. Like, even Tony Parker, who I think if we all could take our pick, like, if we would have to pick between prime Derrick Rose and prime Tony Parker, A lot of people are picking Derrick Rose, but at the end of the day, that's not what this is about, right? It's about everything else. And when I look at this, and I look at, well, okay, Tony Parker, he himself didn't have the numbers necessarily, but he has all these other accolades. I don't think I can put Derrick over him, like in terms of like Hall of Fame status. It's weird, but we're talking about an 18-year career where he was at the best of it, the best, and talked about as one of the best point guards, or one of the better point guards, maybe not the best point guard at the time for Tony Parker. With Rose, his peak was just very short, and after that, he just wasn't much else. And again, not his fault. Obviously, Parker doesn't have an MVP, but he was in a lot of MVP discussions, and he is a four-time All-NBA player, and then obviously he has that Finals MVP that kind of helps him, right? So it just like, I just think about it in terms of like, okay, well, let me think of like a guy that doesn't have necessarily like the best stats, and I like think of Tony Parker immediately, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I take Parker, and yes, his stats overall, in terms of career stats, right, compared to Derrick, they're not better, but the accolades are just so much different that if you just take this person's accolades or this person's career compared to Derrick's career, and you have to go off of what's on the resume, unfortunately, you're just picking Parker to get into the Hall of Fame. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm like thinking, like, is how can Derrick get in? And I just don't have, I don't really know. So yeah, I maybe there's someone else that you can give me that's like a better comparison, but I don't really know who else that would be. Like the other person that like I always kind of bring this up because I have an issue with Steve Nash personally, because I don't think he deserved 2 MVPs, and I already know that's a hot topic. But I mean, another guy, for example, where you look at his career stats, like, okay, well, Derrick's career stats are overall better. But also with Nash, like, it kind of took him a bit, right? Like, it took Nash a little bit to kind of get going in the league. But when the rules kind of switched, he suddenly became this, like, really good player. And everyone's like, oh my God, he's all this, like, he's this amazing player, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which I personally don't think that his first MVP was deserved, but I'll give him the second MVP. But just saying, for this season, if you just, I don't know if you guys are aware, but everyone says, well, Steve Nash led this Phoenix Suns team to the 3rd seed overall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up the standings really quickly for the NBA in that season. I just want you guys to look at something because I think it's really important that yeah, I don't know, just look at this, because there's the Dallas Mavericks here, and there's a guy on that Mavericks team who goes by this name, and I don't know, bro. I'm just kind of looking at all this, etc. And oh, by the way, then the following year, if you want to keep going with this, like, if we just let it do the following year, that it's just so funny when I look at it and how the voting worked out. But when we go to the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns have the 2 seed, and the Mavericks have the 4 seed, but the Mavericks won 60 games and the Suns won 54. Dirk had this year, and yet no one talks about it because somehow a 48, 40, 90 season is not as good as the 50, 40, 90 season, which is correct. I agree. But anyway, I don't know. It's just hard. Now, Steve Nash is also in the Hall of Fame, but he has 2 MVPs and a 7-time All-NBA. So I'm going to have to continue doing my own research, but when I just kind of think of like guards immediately that like didn't dominate, like the John Stocktons of the world, for example, like the Magic Johnsons, obviously, like these guys didn't necessarily dominate, like Steve Nash or like how Tony Parker did, but their careers are just so much longer, and so their peaks and how long they played, and it's such a hard argument because at the end of the day, you're looking at 2 things of peak and longevity, and I kind of think they are both important. So yeah, I don't know. It's rough. So we'll see if Derrick gets in. It's going to be a while before he's even eligible for the Hall of Fame, but we'll see. I'm going to just say though, like he's not a first ballot. I'm just going to say that right now. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. But after that, I mean, I think he could get enough votes to stay on the ballot, and we'll see if he gets voted in eventually. I will be very interested to see if that actually does happen, because, again, I think as a person, he deserves it. His career numbers maybe don't exactly say he deserves it, especially when you compare it to other people. But, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Okay, hold on a second. We have some interesting things. All right. That's my end of my Derrick Rose stuff. Please leave in the comment section down below what you guys think, because again, the number one should be absolutely retired in the rafters. He absolutely deserves that to be retired. He's forever a legend. Hall of Fame status, it's just, the competition's tough, man. It's extremely tough when it comes to the competition for Hall of Fame. Like I said, Chris Webber took forever to get in, when I thought he deserved it much earlier. So, like, when you have guys like that that are like not in, it's kind of hard. Also, I'm just gonna make this clear, because a lot of people are already talking about this, about like how Derrick can't necessarily retire a Bull yet. Just saying, I'm aware that Derrick cannot sign the one-day contract yet because the Bulls training camp roster is currently full. Please, let's not take that and be like, oh my god, the Bulls absolutely suck. Like I'm all for going after Arturas Karnisovas. I despise that man. I despise Reinsdorf. But look, this is not something that needs to like be that big of a deal. When the Bulls start cutting guys from training camp and before the season actually starts, they'll be able to sign Derrick to a one-day contract, and then he'll be done, okay? We'll get the retirement of him as a Bull very soon. It's just, it can't happen right now just because the Bulls have a full training camp roster. So, I know a lot of people are upset about that, and I get why, but to me, it's not that big of a deal. He'll retire a Bull. It will happen, I promise. It just can't happen right now, okay? And a lot of people are saying, like, well, we don't need this guy anyway, so, like, why can't we just do it now? We'll get it done eventually. But at the same time, I do think that these guys also deserve a chance to kind of be on the roster and see who can get the last two-way roster spot, who's going to actually get the 15th roster spot. I don't want to cut any of these guys currently, so let's just let them play it out. Yes, most of them are going to be cut at the end of the day, but they deserve a chance, okay? Rose is retired, and I'm going to say this. I don't think he'd want to push someone off the roster currently just so that he can sign a one-day contract and retire a Bull right now, okay? He would not want that upon these guys, especially some of them because they have Chicago ties. So let's give these guys a chance in actual training camp before we go off on them and say that, oh, they're all these scrubs and they don't deserve to be here because Rose needs to retire a Bull, okay? It will happen. It's just not going to happen right now. He will retire a Bull. It's going to happen soon. We don't need him to be retired now as a Bull. He'll sign the one-day contract eventually. It's just not, it doesn't need to be now. I just saw a lot of that on Twitter, and I'm just like, man, like, do we, like, imagine if you're one of the players right now on the Bulls trying, like, fighting for a roster spot. Like, if you're Taylor Horton Tucker right now, and people are saying, like, man, you shouldn't be here because Derrick needs to retire as a Bull on a one-day contract. Like, how would you feel right now? Like, I understand the importance of Rose retiring as a Bull, but like I said, it's going to happen eventually. It's just that right now training camp is full, okay? We don't need it to happen now. So, give these guys a chance, please. I hate when I saw that. I was losing my mind. Also, for all you wondering, does Derrick Rose deserve to be in the top 75 over someone like Damian Lillard? I know the NBA did their, all, like, the NBA 75 list and whatever. Personally, no, I don't think he deserves to be over Damian Lillard. I also don't think that he would be the next up over, but if Lillard's taken off, he'd be the next person up. I think there's a lot of other players that deserve to be in the NBA 75 over Rose personally. So let's get that out of the way too. That does not mean that I say that he isn't a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying that that's the NBA 75 list. That's a special list, right? So yeah, I'm just putting it out there before we move on here. Okay. Speaking of, though, the last roster spots here, Casey Johnson just tweeted this out. So owner Lot Bitum, not Bitim anymore, Bitum, who's suffered an attached retina in his right eye in the Bulls' next to last game of the season, said he endured 2 surgeries to fix the issue. As part of his recovery, he had to lie on his stomach for 15 hours a day for multiple days. He's healthy and battling for a 15 roster spot. that's great news. I hope Bitum is able to fight for this roster spot. If you're not aware of what's going on right now, I oh my god, sorry, Spot Track changed their stuff, and I had URLs saved, and now they took them away because they're Spot Track, and I don't know, I get upset with them now. But right now the Bulls' 15th roster spot is kind of up for grabs at the moment. So if you're not aware, Bitsum's contract is not guaranteed. Now, apparently some of it was just guaranteed a few days ago because he's still on the roster. But it's not fully guaranteed. So right now, the last roster spot, the 15th spot, is up for grabs. So Taylor Horton Tucker, E.J. Liddell, Kenny Lofton Jr., all these guys are going to be fighting for that last roster spot. So we'll see who actually gets it. I personally don't think Adama Sanogo is going to get it. I think he's going to stay on that two-way contract. But we'll see. The Bulls also have a two-way contract spot open. So Liddell, Lofton Jr., and Marcus Domas, they're all eligible for that two-way contract. So that's going to be the battle for the two-way contract, in my opinion. And I think Liddell is personally going to get it. If I had to make a guess, I do think Taylor Horton Tucker is going to be the last roster spot, and Bitum will get waived, but we'll see. If you're worried about the Bulls heading into the tax, though, whoever they pick, it does not matter. They have tax space; it's perfectly fine. So, but this is a good sign though, because I do think that Bitum deserves a actual opportunity. And it seems like he's gone through a lot of crap because of this detached retina that he had. So I'm happy that he's fully healthy. He had to go through a ton of rehab, and I do think that he has some potential. So I hope that he can come in ready to go in training camp and fight for that last roster spot and potentially win it. So. Good news there. I'm gonna pull Twitter to my other monitor here because Twitter is crazy, and I don't want to show someone dying on the platform because Jesus, that's what Twitter is all about for some reason, and I hate this app so much and website. I'm just gonna go to Will Gottlieb really quickly because I want to just make sure that I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Okay, here's Will Gottlieb's page. Doesn't seem like there's anything. I've been kind of waiting to see if maybe we got some quotes from Patrick Williams or Io DeSumo, but it looks like we're not going to get that. So last thing I'm going to say is this. Before I do end stream, I'm going to start the music again. Hopefully my internet doesn't kill itself here. Okay, good. Internet's doing fine. Sorry, my headphones died. When it comes to this year, I think what's important to kind of also point out from what Billy Donovan did say at his press conference today with AK was he thinks that development for a lot of these guys, especially someone like Buzelis, it's good that there are vets on the roster. And when I talk about vets, I don't mean Levine and Vucevic. I'm talking about guys like DeSumo, like Kobe, like you can even kind of say P. Will now that he's in a second contract, sort of like a vet too. But Donovan has been kind of clear that he doesn't want this just to be an absolute free for all. We're playing a bunch of rookies and sophomores and see what kind of happens because he doesn't think that's good development. It does seem like the Bulls overall though have been really prioritizing development this year. They still say though that they're trying to win games, that they're not prioritizing the top 10 protected pick that's going to the Spurs this year. I'm just gonna hope that they are prioritizing that, and moving forward as we get through the games, that they're gonna really try to find ways to maximize players' development. Now that could cost them a game, right? It could cost them a win. But if I'm able to get Buzelis in a lineup where it's Giddey, White, Levine, Buzelis, maybe at the 5 or whatever, I don't know. But find something to get guys comfortable playing with each other and actually taking steps forward as a player. The Bulls need to prioritize that. And I hope Donovan sees that too. He seems to be very, very, very open to any sort of lineup at the moment. I made a joke earlier on my own page that let me show you this. That this picture was taken, and it's literally 5 guards, and I made the joke oh my god, it's the starting 5 on opening night. It's obviously not going to be the starting 5 opening night. Vucevic is going to be there. Most likely P. Will also be starting. But all I'm going to say is that don't be shocked if there is a lineup where Giddey's like the 4 in a sense, where it's like you have Kobe, Io, Levine, Giddey, and then someone else at the 5. It's a weird lineup. It's basically 4 guards and a center, but if that lineup is able to play fast and push tempo, get guys comfortable, play actually like okay defense, then you run it, right? So all I'm gonna say is, because a lot of people have been really critical of Donovan's lineups, including myself. I've been very critical of Donovan's rotations, and some of the lineups that he runs out there doesn't make any sense to me. But I think this year is gonna be the year where I do step back a little bit from that, because we're not necessarily trying to win the games, right? But more importantly, they're going to be testing out a lot of things this year. It's going to be a lot of just like, hypotheses being thrown out there of like, okay, maybe if we pair this guy and this guy along with this guy, maybe we can like run this sort of thing, right? So I hope that's what they're going to be doing this year, because I really do not care about them trying to win games overall. But if they're willing to experiment and try to figure out which guys fit together nicely to kind of make decisions moving forward, I'm all for it. Even if it like is like the weirdest lineup in the world, right? I'm all for that sort of thing happening. And I hope that Donovan was kind of saying that today during his press conference, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I think Billy Donovan is just trying to win, and I think the front office is trying to sell him that this team is going to win games, and Donovan thinks that they're going to be winning games too and fighting for the play-in. I hate that. I despise that. I hope that's not the case, and I really hope that the Bulls really try to not win games this year and just really focus on player development and nothing more. Like, just focus on these guys just getting better. Focus on getting Buzelis minutes, because Buzelis really wasn't mentioned today much in media day. So I'm just hoping that's the case, but we'll see what actually does happen moving forward. But gonna pop out chat one last time. I just want to say overall though, thank you guys for coming into my my little post media day stream. I might make a video later, so be on the lookout if I do drop a video later today, kind of just going over with my overall thoughts and kind of putting a bow on media day as a whole, because we did get some important information today in my opinion. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. So whether you're watching the VOD or here on stream, I do sincerely appreciate it. If you're able to, please hit the like button on the stream. It helps me out a ton. Just to let you guys know, the plan is for this season is the same as last year. I'm gonna do my best to get through this entire year. Again, we'll see if my health can stay up to date. But post game streams are gonna be back this upcoming season. So expect, starting October 8th, which is the Bulls' first preseason game, there will be a post game stream. In terms of the content, I don't exactly know how I'm going to necessarily do things this year, because now that the Bulls are no longer on YouTube TV and everything's over the air, you need an antenna to get that, and it's this whole process. But I'm currently working on trying to make sure that once the game ends and I come on to stream, that I have the game ready to go on my computer. So it may not happen the first preseason game, and it may take a little bit, like it may take a month for me to get it all figured out, but I'm hoping to have that ready for you guys at some point in the season. So stick with me, but no matter what, the post-game streams are going to continue throughout the year. More videos will happen throughout the year. And I'm looking forward to this year, even though it's going to be an absolute horrible thing to watch, as the Bulls are going to lose a ton of games this year, in my opinion. But hopefully you guys develop. But appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Again, comment down below if you're watching it, watching the VOD, and please hit the like button. Helps me out a ton. I'll see y'all very soon. The season's almost here. Training camp's about to start, so I'll see y'all very soon. Peace out, y'all.